Small businesses often look for funding, and that is especially true when the economy around us isn't doing that well. We still have to run our business, pay our employees, and of course we want to protect our legacy. And so it's no surprise that in times like these, loans for small businesses have become very interesting. In this video today, we talk about Funding Circle in particular, and we want to answer the questions: am I eligible for a loan? Is it a good idea? How much can I and should I borrow? And how do I apply? And at the end, I'll also share with you a few thoughts on the coronavirus situation, something that we have to consider for ourselves and our businesses. So let's do it.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief.
Hi, my name is Dirk Leifert. I've spent over 20 years in financial institutions. But more importantly, for the purpose of today's video, I have helped companies to set their strategic direction, and I've looked for ways how they can implement their vision from an operational standpoint. And that helped me to identify quite a few factors on whether a loan for a company is a good idea or not. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, but first of all, let's answer that question: am I eligible for a loan? To qualify for a small business loan, which, by the way, for Funding Circle means a loan anywhere between £50,000 and £250,000, you must be a UK registered company. You should also be already trading for at least 3 years, have a turnover of £200,000, and half of those £200,000 have to come from your trading activity and not from, let's say, investment income. By the way, Funding Circle is the UK's largest peer-to-peer lending platform. They've already lent about £7 billion to small and medium-sized businesses. And how it works is that it allows ordinary people to invest in businesses just as yourself. And because it cuts out the bank as a middleman, typically as a lender, so typically as yourself, you get more favorable interest rates. Is it a good idea to take a loan? Well, I would like to approach this question from a very objective standpoint. And I do understand that for many of you, it is a very subjective question. You are business owners, you are passionate about your products and your clients, you want to keep the business running, and so there is a very large emotional component in there as well. And I get that. But I do want to encourage you to apply some critical thinking, because a loan ultimately is something that impacts your company for at least the medium term. So in order to justify a loan with a good conscience, here are 3 questions that I would certainly ask. Number 1, what led to the need of more cash? Number 2, will cash actually solve my problem? And number 3, what do I actually want to do with that cash? The answer to that may be that you think my business has just not gotten off the ground yet. Well, then I would also ask the question: are you convinced of your business model? Have you reviewed it critically? And maybe it is worthwhile to sit down with a professional to review the strategy that you are pursuing. Equally, you might say, look, we're just in a financial downturn. I need the money to tide me over. Once the crisis is over, we go back to normal and my business is profitable again. And that might very well be the case, but I would ask you to think critically about it. Have you looked into your industry? Has it possibly fundamentally changed? Or even if it hasn't, is there something in your business that you can do differently in the future that might make it better? And that not only impacts the decision whether or not you want to take a loan, but also the size of the loan. If that money is purely for sustaining your business and tiding you over and get through the crisis, well, the critical question you have to ask is my return on investment from the business greater than the interest rate that I have to pay for the loan? And equally, if you decide to take the money to expand your business because you see new opportunities, then again the question is is the money that you generate from that expansion greater than the total amount of money that you have to repay for the loan. This, of course, is all basic math. What happens though, of course, is that as business owners, we are so believing in our product, we are so involved in our business that sometimes we decide based on a feeling rather than a calculation. Let's not make that mistake. Even if the calculation would say that the loan isn't a good idea, you know what? It opens your mind up to a whole range of new possibilities. Suddenly you can think about, well, if that business isn't sustainable as such, is there a different product that I can offer? Is there a service that I can add to my portfolio? Or maybe you start thinking about your operations and how to make that more cost effective. And once you implement those changes, well, the calculation changes and the loan may very well make sense now. How much should I borrow? Well, that's actually a very simple question. If you run the calculation before and if you indeed found that your return on investment or the money you make from an expansion is greater than the interest rate that is charged, borrow all the money that you need for that endeavor. And otherwise, you borrow zero. And you go back to step one and revisit your model and run the calculation again until it makes sense. So how do I apply? Well, first of all, don't worry, I'm not sitting here and talk you step by step through each of the fields that you have to fill out in the online application form. The link to that is in the description box below. You're all business owners, you can do that surely yourself. What I do want to spend a little bit of time on though is the process that follows after you send the application form. There are a few steps involved that you may not be aware of, that may even change the way you think about the loan. And even if it doesn't, it helps you to get all the documentation together so that you can run through the process as smoothly as possible and of course get the loan as soon as possible. Once you send the application, the team in Funding Circle will gather all of that, they will review your information and they will also require 3 more sets of data. One of them is that they will require 3 months of your business bank statements. They also want to see the last set of filed accounts at Company House for your business. And then finally, they wish to see a profit and loss statement and the balance sheet information for your last financial year. So make sure that you have that documentation at hand in case you haven't sent that already with your initial application. Now, what happens after that is that Funding Circle will run credit checks on your business, but also on yourself. And that is regardless of whether you are a limited company or not. And after that has passed as well and they reviewed your financials, they'll give that data to an underwriter. And at the underwriter stage, there's only 3 very simple questions asked. Number 1, is it affordable for you? Does it make sense? And does it comply with the credit criteria that Funding Circle has set out? Now, I'm aware the last one we can't do much about it, but if you have in your mind a very clear understanding of whether it's affordable and whether it makes sense, that will also be very clear to the underwriter. After that is done, you come to the final stage of the application process. So at that stage, your loan will be approved and they will ask you for some further information. And what is required from you is this. First of all, a signed loan contract signed by a director on behalf of the company. Number 2, a personal guarantee. Now, this may actually be a surprise to you. You might say, oh, I'm a limited company, why do you need a personal guarantee? The way Funding Circle acts though is that they may not lend to you as a business alone. They may require a personal guarantee so that if your company cannot repay the loan, you as the owner will become liable. And once again, make sure it is affordable. And if you have doubts, then getting a loan strictly for the company through another institution could actually make more sense. Number 3, they will ask for a direct debit mandate. They will also require some proof of ID, so they will run ID checks. and there will be involved some final fraud checks. Congratulations! After that, the loan will be granted as soon as practical. As promised, just want to take a minute to speak to you about the coronavirus situation and how that might impact you and I in the future. So, the government has done a tremendous amount to help individuals and businesses to go through the crisis. They've established a furlough scheme. They have established loans that are backed by the government that go to small businesses such as yours. And that is all very helpful, but we should make no mistake, that is not free money. It will have to be repaid at some stage. Yes, it is helpful that maybe all other countries are in a similar position. So relatively speaking, we may not see the impact as drastic and as immediate as otherwise, but ultimately it will have to be repaid. And it'll come in one of two ways. It'll either be through taxes or it'll be through inflation. So what does that mean for us? Well, first of all, very sensibly, when we set up our business, make sure that your money is paid mainly through dividends and not so much through personal income, because that'll protect you against maybe future higher taxes. The other one is mainly for those of us who have longer standing contracts. Maybe you have engagements that even last a couple of years or beyond that. And in those situations, I would consider to add some inflation clause into the contract to make sure that your future income isn't damaged by future inflation, but that it'll be adjusted for the inflation rate that we'll experience in the future. That is only one way to fund your business. The other source is equity, and very often when we talk about equity, we think about venture capital. There's actually an article coming out on that topic on LinkedIn within the next week, so if you don't want to miss it, go into the description box below, connect on LinkedIn with us if you haven't done so already. Maybe the video has inspired you to think about your business a little bit differently. And if that is the case, then I want to share with you something that inspired me to think about my business and to write powerful mission statements. So I'll link that video on the screen right now. I will see you over there, and of course in the next video.